Welcome to the Real Estate Espresso Podcast, your morning shot of what's new in the world of real estate investing. I'm your host, Victor Menasce. Today I want to talk about a powerful force that's shaping housing demand across North America. It's not population growth, it's not immigration, or even job creation. It's the growing gap between the cost of renting and the cost of home ownership. A new report issued by Marcus & Millichap this month shows that the cost of living increases are an absolute headwind for homeowners. Mortgage rates climbed back above 6.5% in late May, and as pricing pressures have been building as a result of the war in the Persian Gulf. Ongoing disruptions to global shipping have kept energy prices elevated, and in turn, April's Consumer Price Index rose 3.8% year over year, the highest since 2023. A Pentagon assessment warns that fully clearing the Iranian naval mines from the Strait of Hormuz could take several months after the conflict formally ends. That suggests continued upward pressure on oil prices that could persist for some time. With elevated energy costs likely to remain through much of the year, inflationary pressures may continue to complicate the outlook for monetary policy. The Federal Reserve held rates steady at the May meeting, and Wall Street now has priced in meaningful probability of a rate hike before year end. Now, borrowing costs are absolutely weighing on demand because mortgage rates are closely tied to monetary policy expectations. Markets are now pricing in the odds that the 30-year fixed-rate mortgage surpasses 6.8% before year-end and a roughly 1 in 4 chance that it reaches 7%. If borrowing costs continue to rise, affordability pressures will intensify. It's going to weigh on home sales at a time when market conditions are already softening. Seasonally adjusted home sales in April remain 25% below the monthly average recorded over the period from 2015 to 2019. And the median existing home sale price has declined about 2% through the first 4 months of this year. At the same time, the number of existing home sales continues to climb, reaching the highest level since 2020, and it's suggesting that available inventory is accumulating as elevated financing costs suppress buyer activity and extend those listing durations. Now, for years, we've heard that home ownership is part of the American dream, but at the end of the day, households have to make economic decisions. When the monthly cost of owning a home becomes dramatically higher than the cost of renting a comparable property, many families simply choose to rent. This isn't just theory, we see it playing out in real time. A recent analysis of the 50th largest metros in the U.S. found that renting is cheaper than buying in every single major market. Not some markets, all of them. The average cost of home ownership now exceeds the cost of renting by more than 50%. Now think about that for a moment. If you can rent for $2,000 a month, but home ownership costs $3,100 a month, that's not a small difference. That's a lifestyle decision. It's a college tuition. It's retirement savings. That's money that's available for travel, for childcare, or simply surviving in an inflationary environment. Some markets show an even more dramatic spread. In Austin, the monthly cost of ownership is more than double the cost of renting. In Seattle, LA, Phoenix, Dallas, San Francisco, New York, the gap is enormous. And here's the important point. The data was compiled when mortgage rates were about 6.2%. They're higher now. That means the affordability challenge has become even more severe. When we think like investors, we need to ask what this means for housing demand. Many people assume that a strong housing market automatically translates into strong home sales. But housing demand and home ownership demand are not the same thing. A household needs a place to live. If ownership becomes unaffordable, then that demand doesn't disappear. It shifts to apartments. It shifts into build-to-rent communities. It shifts into professionally managed rental housing. In other words, the pool of renters expands. Now, before you rush out and buy every apartment building you can find, let's add some nuance. Demand alone doesn't guarantee rent growth. A market can have tremendous demand and still struggle if thousands of new units are being delivered at the same time. We've seen this in many Sunbelt markets, for example, Austin, Nashville, Dallas. There's quite a few that are oversupplied today. So sophisticated investors don't stop at the rent versus own calculation. You got to ask a second question. How quickly is that new supply being absorbed? If a market has a large ownership premium, strong employment growth, household formation, and manageable levels of supply, that's where this thesis becomes investable. That's where you can potentially benefit from the structural shift in housing preference. Now, I've said many times that successful investing requires not about predicting appreciation. It's about identifying a real need in the marketplace and delivering a product that solves that problem. Today, One of the biggest problems facing households is affordability. And when ownership costs 50, 70, 100% more than renting, many families will simply choose the rental option, whether they originally wanted to or not. As investors, we should pay attention to those incentives. The market is constantly voting with their feet, with real dollars, real decisions each and every month. Right now, those votes are telling us something important, that for a growing number of households, renting is not a temporary compromise. It's become the rational economic choice. So as you think about that, have a look at the ownership premium in your market and go make some great things happen. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.